Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the new Disney Plus Star Wars show, Andor. So we are going to be talking about the first 4 episodes, which is every episode that's been released at the point of this recording. So if you haven't seen it, potential spoiler alert for all of those episodes. So go check them out on Disney Plus, and then come back and see what we have to say about it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So the whole thing about Andor is that it came at kind of a surprise, right? Andor, Cassian Andor is based off of a character that we first saw appear in the movie Rogue One, which to many, including myself, is probably one of the best, if not the best, Disney era Star Wars films. And that was a character who was in the rebellion and he was doing very shady things, but it gave a kind of a different, it put the rebellion in a different light. It showed that not all the rebels are these people who want to do things by the book and try to like take the high road. Some rebels are the ones like Saw Gerrera who are like, hey, we're going to be just as grimy and dirty as the Empire is. And so we all know how that story ends for Andor because he's with the group that is on Scarif at the point that Scarif gets blown up by the Death Star. And so that's how his story ends. Sorry, spoiler alert for Rogue One too. My bad. Um, and so this show is a prequel. It takes place 5 years BBY, so before the Battle of Yavin, and before basically A New Hope, and before Rogue One. So this story is going to follow Cassian before he is what he will eventually become. And when we got notification that we were getting this show, my first response was why. Like, uh, sure, he was fine in the movie, but I don't think anybody was asking for a Jyn Erso or a Cassian Andor spin-off show. So it came as a surprise to me that we were getting this. But much to my surprise, it's actually pretty good.
I mean, I have some problems with the pacing, and that's just because, I felt the first three episodes were like one movie. Like, if instead of calling it a series and they just made the first three episodes a movie, I would have been like, that's a good movie.
You know, it's
Um,
funny. I just want to tell you real quick. So two things. One, the guy who's doing it is Tony Gilroy, who is the person that is behind the Born series of films, and he said that for what he wanted to do for this series was instead of having kind of like this stretched out story, you have like kind of the overarching like whatever the thing is that's happening that leads to one thing to another. But he said he was going to do a story arc of like four story arcs across 3 episodes apiece. So every 3 episodes is its own completed story arc over the course of, I guess, what, 12 episodes, so 4 distinct story arcs. So it makes sense that you got that feeling.
Yeah, it just feels like the structure was it's just really weird, and it almost felt like the first two episodes were kind of boring, and I felt like it could have been like the first three episodes could have been one episode if they just, kind of restructured it and like cut some stuff out, or like move some stuff around, because they do spend some time, with Cassian's past when he's a kid and stuff, that I don't entirely think we need at the beginning when we're just trying to get like, I mean, because if you're thinking of it like in terms of like, oh, it's a movie, then it's fine, because it's
Hmm.
structured well for a movie where everyone expects to sit down and watch this for like 2-3 hours, right? But
Hmm.
if you have like a show that's episodic, it kind of has a different sort of structure that people are expecting. And while I am all for breaking the rules and doing things against the norm, there's a good way to do it and then there's a bad way to do it. And I think this kind of fell short for me here because it didn't capture my attention. And like literally like after the first episode was like, okay, I can't stop here. because we're doing a show about it, and like I have to give it a chance because sometimes like the first couple of episodes are just, not there yet. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I did. And then we got to the third episode and I was like, oh, okay, that's great. I actually really like the third episode because a lot of stuff happens with it. We're getting a lot of return from the first two episodes. And then I watched the fourth episode, and like the way the fourth episode ends, it's like, wait, that's how it ends? Like, there's no cliffhanger. There's nothing that's calling me back to watch more of it. Like, I actually, to be honest, like, I think I watched it like 2 days ago. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember how it ends. I don't remember how the
Mm-hmm.
episode ends because they don't end it in a way that is wanting me to come back. I'm not
Right.
wanting to come back for more. I'm gonna go back for more because I want to know what happens with like the whole situation. I don't want to. I mean, it's Star Wars. I'm gonna watch it. I watched all of Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm. Which is
And
funny that you bring up Obi-Wan, but oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
oh yeah, that was it.
Okay, because Obi-Wan does all those things that you were talking about, and it's a terrible ass show. Um, and so for me, because that's the thing, like a lot of these things are very formulaic, and they are trying to just do the thing that we expect, right? I mean, Game of Thrones is like one of the greatest shows of our time up until like the last couple of seasons, and the first couple of seasons are just people talking. We talked about that with House of the Dragon too. And so like I think that it's not something that people are accustomed to for Star Wars. But see, for me, the reason that why it lands is because I'm all for changing the pace. Because there's a lot of things out there that are more fast paced and that aren't slow burns. And Andor, so all you guys know, Andor is absolutely a slow burn. But the slow burn works for me because it's giving the characters room to breathe. It's allowing us time to like spend not only with Andor and his other friends that he has, but also the Empire. It's also building up how the world looks from the ground for regular people, which is not something we see that often. So often we frame the Empire from the perspective of the elite rebels or the Jedi that have to fight them and all these other things, and it's always very vainglorious and large. And this is more kind of a small scale view of what it looks like to live under the empire's rule and how it affects like normal day-to-day people. And so like for me that works. I will say like I can absolutely understand why, just because I guarantee like you're not the only person that feels that way, Cheryl. I already know there's a lot of people that are just like, yo, this is too slow, there's not enough action. And I mean that's all fair assessments. But I think for me the reason that it doesn't bother me so much is because we already have so many other things out there that are like that. um and there are so many times where I talk about how just I mean we just talked about Jurassic World, right? We were talking about how like I like these moments where characters get a moment to just kind of like interact and see, and like you get to like really build them up. And there's so many things that don't spend the time to do that because they're trying to just jump to the next like action sequence that's supposed to like be like, hey, wake up, by the way, yeah, don't forget you're still watching us, blah blah blah. But then it makes it so that certain story points don't land. And that was one of the biggest problems with Obi-Wan was trying to rush you through things so quickly that it didn't take time to really ask itself, hey, does this character doing this in this situation make sense? Maybe Obi-Wan, if he is having such trouble with the Force in Episode One, maybe he shouldn't, and having trouble moving things. Maybe he shouldn't be able to like all of a sudden do big Force moves in Episode Three or Episode Four out of a 6 episode series. But they wanted to rush it, so I don't think that it's an unfair assessment to say that Andor is slow, because even for me, the third episode is the best episode because there's such a cool build up. But part of me also thinks that the reason that episode also works is because of the slow burn to get to that point where we met these imperial people and we got to see their interactions. We know that this other guy who is kind of annoying but wants to like capture the guy that caused the death of these officers, and then he has this other guy that also wants to like help him, and then they have their personalities. But then we also have Andor, and he's trying to like get away, but then you have that other guy who doesn't really like Andor because he thinks that he might be doing something with his girl. It's just kind of stupid. I like we'll talk about that. That's like the dumbest thing to me. Um but then yeah, and then I think that it all culminates into that big moment. And so I would give it back to you in a second, but I think the last thing I kind of want to say was that going into the fourth episode, that episode is definitely another setup episode. We're getting to meet new characters and starting to see them. And then obviously in the next two episodes, the story will be concluded. They'll either do the thing or they won't. But one of the things that I think that Andor benefits from is the fact that all of these characters are new except for Andor. So while we know what his conclusion will be, I don't know what everybody else's conclusion is going to be. So when I meet all these characters, I'm automatically thinking to myself, y'all are all going to go here and in here and die, straight up. And I think that that's at least nice to have over the show's head.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you in the sense that I really appreciated all of the fleshing out and like the time that we get to know the characters and the surroundings and just the all the build up and setup and everything. Like all of it really worked for me. It's just the it just didn't work for me in the structure of an episodic show. I think
Mm-hmm.
like and that's like really all it is. Like
Yeah.
everything else about it like was fine for me. Um, I almost feel like I just wish that instead of calling it a show and making it into episodes, I wish that it was just a movie. Like can we just have it like it be called a movie instead, like what it really is, as opposed to like chopping up a movie actually and then calling it
And they're calling it
episodes.
episodes.
Like I think that's really all it is for me. And then the
Mm-hmm.
fact that like that that it's continuing, like there's a fourth episode and like I didn't know that there like it's gonna be like different storylines, although I kind of figured it might be
Mm-hmm.
another storyline, because he's leaving the planet and you know with another person, so like there's this whole other thing that's gonna happen and it's not gonna be on that planet anymore.
Right.
So I just feel like it needs to be called something else. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got tricked again because the fourth episode was like, gotcha, it's only the first third of the next movie.
Yeah, if you don't know that going in, it can feel kind of odd. I think also I'm uniquely prepared for this because they started doing this a lot with Star Wars, but also in DC. Like if you ever watched the show Young Justice, eventually they started to get into 4 episode story arcs over the course of a 26 episode season. And then that will all culminate by the end. And even like the last couple episodes of Star Wars, the last seasons of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, they start doing the same thing. They get into 3 episode story arcs across the entirety of the season. So I've been seeing this kind of take being done before with other shows. So I'm kind of more, I guess, adapted to that experience. And for me, I think the reason that it works is because a lot of the times it can be a lot easier to just kind of like sit down, get into the thing, get the story done, and move on. But a lot of modern day shows, unfortunately, like Obi-Wan, where they are trying to stretch an overall narrative over the course of 6 episodes, it's almost kind of like they don't know how to fill those episodes, so they can like they fill them with this padding that doesn't like necessarily need to be there. So it's two different takes on how to do, I guess, TV shows now. And at least like serialized dramas. So it just comes down to, like you said, if it works for you or not. And that's the whole thing. Like these different styles that they're playing with are meant to try to pull in different types of audience or captivate people in different ways. Because I know there are some people that don't necessarily like the long form storytelling where we have questions on episode 1 that aren't answered until like episode like 22 or season 3. Um, so yeah, so I think that that's one reason why it doesn't bother me as much, but I think it does make sense that if it's not something that you've experienced before, when you're used to other types of how ways that serialized storytelling happens, it's super jarring, and it can just be like, wait, what the heck? I thought 4 was gonna get even better than episode 3, but now we're back to a lull. So we just the thing just did this, and then now it's doing this, and now it's gonna be doing this again, and now it's gonna do this, and it's basically gonna do that for the next 9 episodes.
Yeah, and I do want to move on from the structure of the story, even though like that's kind of like the biggest thing for me. I I guess I just kind of wish that they just dropped 3 episodes at a time if they were gonna do different storylines like that, because like I wouldn't mind it if they ended the episodes in a way where it would want me to come back for more. But the fact that they did, I mean, they do that for a reason. Like, the reason why TV shows are like that is because they want you to come back, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like they didn't care if I came back or not.
They probably don't.
Yeah. And like I mean I wouldn't say like it's necessarily the right or wrong thing to do. I just wish that if they were going to care less about structuring it in a way to make you come back, that they would at least release the episodes in a way where
Yeah, as
like
packs.
I will keep watching it because it's there and it's
Yeah.
next, as opposed to like what I just watched. Oh, I forgot
Well,
about it.
that's a good point because I also don't remember. I think like when I think about how episode 4 ended, I literally just think they were sitting around a campfire and then it ended. And like a lot of the episodes can end like they end like that. So I think one of the people in our chat just brought up how Arcane did it. They did it the way you just said, and that probably. I mean, that's something for Disney to think about if they want to do another story like this in the future. It just makes it easier to, you know, digest.
I believe episode 4 ended with Cassian saying, hang on, I gotta use the bathroom, I'll be right back. Was that not it? I thought.
No, this is not what happened.
Was that what
What is
happened?
wrong? What's wrong with you? Oh, but all right, but let's talk about some of the things that happened like in that first 3 episode story arc. In that 3 episode story arc, he gets betrayed by the one of his friends that is dating the or seems to have some type of like strange relationship with this the other girl who is kind of the person that gets him to sell the things that he needs to sell. I don't remember, but I don't think we saw how he came into possession of that Starlight Navipath or whatever it was called. I feel like he's just had that since the
He
show
had it,
began.
yeah.
So I think at some point maybe we'll figure out exactly how he got that. You mentioned the whole thing with like the child storyline with him as a kid. I remember when I first saw that, I was thinking to myself, what's the point of all this? And I feel like I won't be able to accurately judge the quality of that storyline until I see where they're going with it, because that seems to be the one thing that is kind of, I guess, the underlying current of the entire series. So that's going to be the traditional serialized story for us that we follow from that point until whatever the conclusion of that story is going to be, which I'm assuming is going to relate to something that's happening in the present day at the same time. But as of right now, yeah, that story feels very inconsequential outside of just it existing to show us in the first couple episodes how he met the woman that is now his acting mother.
Yeah, and that he's part of like some like species or culture that is like kind of a mystery,
Mm-hmm.
that's been extinct, and makes him very unique from everybody else.
Right.
So
Fortunately, he looks like everybody else.
yeah. I was like, I mean, how? Yeah, I yeah, I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of like the biggest the other things that have been like kind of frustrating me with modern day Star Wars that's not animated is that there just seem to be so many humans all over the place. Like not enough aliens, and I get it, it's expensive to do those costumes and stuff like that, but like yeah, we're not seeing many of the other alien races. It's usually just humans, and everybody is just like just human or human adjacent, but like even other creatures, because most aliens in Star Wars have humanoid features as far as like 2 arms, 2 legs, whatever, 1 head. but we're not seeing other like Twi'leks or Rodarians or any of the other alien races on the regular, and I think that that is unfortunately a little strange because Star Wars is so much about like the connection between a bunch of aliens. Although I do know that the original trilogy, you barely saw any aliens. I think in A New Hope, it was basically all humans in A New Hope, if I remember correctly. And then it was after A New Hope that we started seeing more alien faces like throughout the franchise. But for me, I would just like to see more aliens.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, regular modern day film. That's all I was gonna say. But but no, I agree. I noticed that too. There were not a lot of different kinds of aliens, and even if you did kind of see them, they're just kind of like extras in the back, which
Hmm.
I'm glad they did. But I think they needed to do more of that. Although I thought it was really funny with the that big alien who
Oh
like that other
yeah,
guy brought just to like try to scare him, but he's like, I don't know, you just told me to
we
come.
stand here. Yeah, no, exactly. So that would be nice. But um are you at least curious about, cuz I'm pretty sure that they said we don't I don't know for a fact, but I want to say that if the show is successful, their plan is to make the show 5 seasons and make the show go directly into Rogue One. And maybe it's not going to be 5 seasons, but they did say that the show is going to take place over the course of a couple of years and the ending of the show would directly lead into Rogue One.
I would love that actually because they did. I mean, the whole thing about oh, by the way, Rogue One spoilers, and if you want to watch it, we'll put our episode on Rogue One. We'll put it at the end of this episode, but it Rogue One basically directly led into A New
A New
Hope.
Hope.
So how like awesome would it be if they ended Andor leading directly into Rogue One? I would applaud that if they managed to do a really good job on it and really like flesh out the character and not have Andor like drag on too long with stories that are unnecessary. Like I just want to know the story. I just want to know how he got there and like have him end up there the first time that we see him um, in Rogue One, and maybe even get to see a little bit more of Rogue
Hmm.
One in the last season of Andor as well, like on his side of it as opposed to Jin's.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool. Do you think
Yeah.
that is this droid K2SO or K28SO? I think that's his name. I can't remember. The droid that was Alan Tudyk. Do you think that he'll get to meet that droid during this show? Because when they start Rogue One, I think they're already your friends, right?
Yeah. No, that would be cool. And I'm sure Alan Tudyk would totally be down for it as well. By the way, I am wearing the Solo droid shirt. That's from
Nice.
Solo. Wrong story, but
Exactly. Yeah, no bias whatsoever, play Matt. Um, but no bias from anyone here. Um, yeah, no, that would be. I think that that'd be really exciting to see. So I definitely would want to see that. One thing that I am kind of happy about and excited, like the show has a different way of doing fan service. Like the show isn't as fan servicey as like say Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it has other moments that are kind of like more subtle moments that are kind of cool. Like Scarif is actually mentioned by name. I want to say in the third or fourth episode. I think it's the fourth episode when they're all like,
yeah, I think it's the fourth episode.
yeah, and that's so like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then they when they go and they're meeting the, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting this dude's name, but when Mon Mothma goes to meet with the guy who is the guy that recruits Cassian, and we find out that he actually is another person that's on like the council, um, and like he's another politician, and I love that moment where you see him kind of like trying to like get into character, like looking at himself in the mirror, and then how they play with each other. And when they go to the back, like the facade immediately drops, and he's like, "Hey, do you have what I need?" Blah blah. I like that element of it, and I love also seeing Mon Mothma. in these moments at the start of the rebellion, seeing how she's gonna like get this thing going.
Isn't it Mon Mothra?
Is it Mon Mothra? I think it's Mon Moth. What? Oh, it's not Mothra.
I'm
It's
not
not
sure.
Mothra. What is
Someone
wrong
in the
with you?
chat, someone
That's
in the chat, can you check
Godzilla.
that?
It's Mon Mothma, not Mon Mothra. She isn't from a Godzilla movie.
Oh, okay. But that was her. I wasn't sure. I was like, that does look like a young version of her, but I wasn't entirely sure because I don't remember if anyone ever said her name. So,
Oh,
are we just
I don't
assuming that
know.
it's her? Because I had the same thought that you did.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
It
it's
is Mon
labeled as
Mothma.
her. It's labeled as her in the credits, but also that's how she looks. That's the same actress that plays Mon Mothma
Oh,
in the movies. The same way
okay.
they got the same actor that played Bail Organa. So, yeah. I think she might have even voiced that same. She might have even voiced the character in the Clone Wars, but I can't remember. Um, so,
Okay. Got
yeah.
it, got it. All right.
So that's, and I think that's going to be the most intriguing aspect of Andor is seeing that this is the real start of the rebellion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rebellion does not really exist right now, and they kind of did this a little bit in Rebels. Like Rebels is about the start of the rebellion, but Rebels they kind of get pulled into a rebellion that's already building. They were just doing their own thing, and Hera might have been was kind of associated with them, the rebellion people. And now here we get to really see how does that rebellion even get off the ground? How do these people that work in the Senate get to start a rebellion that is going to lead to the downfall of the empire? And like I think that's probably the most excited I get about Star Wars as a whole is and like seeing these other stories is seeing how everybody's contribution led to the fall of the empire. It wasn't just Luke because Luke would not have had the plans for how to destroy the Death Star if it wasn't for Cassian Andor, Jyn Erso, and their team that died on Scarif, and they might not have been there if it wasn't for this guy pulling Cassian into the war in the first place, and that wouldn't have happened if Mon Mothma and this guy didn't decide to start this rebellion together as well. So I'm like, everybody has their part to play in the larger scheme of things that will lead to Luke eventually taking down the Emperor, and that's the part that I really, really love about what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the reasons why like this expansion of Star Wars is like so cool and why we're so fascinated with it and probably why we like Rogue One so much because it's like the first time we're seeing like a really fleshed out story that is off. It was like like a one off of the main storyline, but it still fits into the main storyline. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not about any of the characters that we already know. They're all like original characters that like played such a huge part in the fall of the empire, and they're all like characters that like sacrifice themselves
Yeah.
to get this thing done, to save the universe and everything. And they're like unsung heroes, and we're all like, oh,
Yep.
Luke is like, yes, he did, ultimately, like, well, I mean, they kind of unraveled that, but anyways, never mind. I don't want to talk about it. But if you
Oops.
ignore that part, if you ignore that
Oops.
if you ignore episode 7, 8, and 9, and Luke's work does not get unraveled, then yeah, like everything just kind of like you said, like everyone has their own part to play, and and like maybe that's why we're enjoying Andor so much because it's another connection to that part where we actually get to see, like really, really get to see the people who are also doing other things to contribute to the fall of the empire. But it also reminds me of like the smaller stuff, even like the video game Fallen Order, where even that has like this whole other like unexplored storytelling from other places in the universe where there's these like little like individuals who are doing huge things,
Yeah.
and it's all behind the scenes from what we all know and love.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why, yeah, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. That's why these stories are fun to watch. They enhance, just like I want to say, just like the prequel trilogy enhanced the stories of the original trilogy. These stories that we're getting also enhance the story of the original trilogy because we get more context, we get more of a connection about what led to the things that result. Um, I am curious if eventually, I'm hoping, as much as I love Clone Wars, as much as I love Andor and Rebels, I am hoping that we will be able to start to move forward in future shows. Like, I kind of am more interested in seeing what the universe looks like post Return of the Jedi, like the era of where we are in Mandalorian. Like, I think that there's a lot of potential there because, I mean, we don't really need to think about the sequel trilogy, but I just want to say that we can start to move forward with different characters and new characters to see what does the galaxy develop into after Luke beats and like destroys the Emperor. After Vader destroys the Emperor, like what does the universe become? What does like they were doing this a little bit with Mandalorian, how we had these different sects of the Empire that were still trying to exist. But what happens when all of those get stamped out? What does the galaxy look like? Like what are the conflicts of the galaxy? Are there any big conflicts, or are they just a bunch of small conflicts? So that's kind of like the next era of like Star Wars that I personally would like to see stories take place in. As much as I do enjoy going back and like mining this time between A New Hope, like between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, I want to be able to like move past that, because even before that it was mining the time in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So that's fine. But now there's like what 30 years between Return of the Jedi and the Force Awakens. So there's so much that we could do there, and that's what I want to see next.
I want to see before Anakin.
Yeah, the Republic era, the
Yeah.
era of the High Republic, and I think that they're talking about having video games and comic books in that world. But I would love to see that in live action. I 100% agree with you. Yoda would be there because Yoda would still be alive because
Yeah,
he's
I was gonna
just like
say
ridiculous.
when, like, because the whole thing about Star Wars is like we love the lightsabers and the Jedi fighting the Sith and stuff, but almost all of Star Wars is not that.
Hmm.
Even though, like, hell, the Jedi survived Order 66.
Yeah.
And they're all on Tatooine.
For some reason.
Yeah. But another thing I wanted to point out about Andor that I really liked is, like, well, one, it didn't take place on Tatooine.
Yes, we got a
Or,
new planet.
yeah, and it's not a desert planet, so I thought that was like a cool, like, it's something new. Like, we get to see the culture on that planet as well. But another thing that I thought was cool is we're not just getting to see the underlings of the rebellion, but we're getting to see the underlings of the empire, where you have
Yeah.
like the bottommost like guys who I don't even think they're part of the empire. They're just like the security.
Security guys, yeah.
Yeah, and like this one guy who like he just seems like the most empire security guard ever.
Hmm.
You kind of root for him because it feels like he's trying to do like the
The
right
right
thing,
thing.
right? Like, yeah, like yes, Cassian is our hero and stuff, but he also kills two dudes at the very beginning of the show. And then you have this like security guy who wants to solve and get justice for the murder of these two guards. And so like he's actually the hero of the show, and he does everything right but everything wrong at the same time. And I feel like his storyline is so interesting and complex in itself. Like it it's such like it's not like in the spotlight of the show at all,
Yeah.
but it's present enough, like if you were really paying attention to it, like it's sort of like subtle enrichment to the story. It gives like another like
Layer.
layer to
Yeah.
the show that really makes this like Andor is just so fluffy. It's so full of content and everything, even though it's like not in the format like as we had said
Hmm.
before. It's like in itself so well written and so interesting that like I'm quite happy with it. It's just the way it's delivered.
Yeah. No, that's I'm glad you brought him up. His story is one I want to see how that's going to go, but yeah, the fact that we're seeing it's so much it's basically ground level Star Wars. It's like you have if you have the Jedi and Sith up here, and then you have like the Imperial like leaders and the leaders of the rebellion here, you have Andor, Cassian Andor, and this other guy are all down here, just at the bottom, just basically just trying to scrape by. So, like, I'm definitely curious to see where his story goes. But I agree with what you said about his story enriching the overall feeling of the show. So, all right, we've been going for a little bit here, so we're gonna go ahead and have to call it there. But if you guys want to hear us talk more about this and other things, you can check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. It'd be great to see you guys over there, where we can talk about more Star Wars. We talk about things outside of Star Wars or outside of the things that we just talked about on this YouTube segment that we record for you. But what did you guys think about Andor? Did you kind of feel like it was a little too slow for you? Is it feeling like it's just the right pace? Are you interested in watching more? Or are you just gonna watch it more because it's just Star Wars and you watch everything Star Wars? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe, even if you don't though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and if you want to check out some of our other Star Wars videos, I think I'll put Obi-Wan here, and then underneath Chris will be Rogue One, our Star Wars videos above, and our C3 other videos above Chris. Check it out, guys, next time.